The words struck like a blade through the quiet rhythm of my day. Purse. The Alpha King demands your presence. 7 syllables, spoken in a voice that brooked no argument, shattered the fragile invisibility I had spent years weaving around myself. My hands froze over the basket of dried herbs I'd been sorting, rosemary and thyme spilling across the table in a messy scatter. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. My chest tightened as if a giant fist had closed around my lungs. I had heard those words spoken before, but never for me. They were usually for warriors summoned to report after a battle, for council members called to strategize, for servants accused of disobedience. Never for the human girl who swept floors, peeled vegetables, and mended frayed linens. A kitchen maid, nothing more. That was who I was supposed to be. I lifted my eyes slowly, almost against my will. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, the Alpha King's third in command, his expression carved from stone. He had the bearing of a soldier, tall, broad, all edges sharpened by discipline. His gaze flickered over me once, quick and assessing, and though his tone had been impassive, I thought I caught the faintest glint of pity in his eyes. The kitchen, usually alive with the clatter of spoons, the hiss of boiling pots, the chatter of voices, fell deathly silent. Every wolf inside turned to look at me. Ara. The human girl? The outsider who had somehow survived 3 years among wolves without being torn apart. I felt the weight of their stares pressing against me, heavy as chains. Some eyes gleamed with curiosity, others with disdain. More than one pair shone with undisguised relief. Relief that it was me who had been summoned, not them. My mouth was dry, but the question slipped out anyway. A whisper scraped raw from my throat. Why? I already knew it was foolish to ask. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. It isn't your place to question the Alpha King, and it certainly isn't mine. The air itself seemed to curdle around us. Mira, the head cook, let out a bitter laugh. Oh, you've done something all right. Humans always do. Her words dripped venom, as sharp as the knives she wielded. I flinched. 3 years of toil in this kitchen, arriving first, leaving last, swallowing my pride along with stale bread and thin stew, and still, I was nothing but a trespasser in their eyes, a tolerated inconvenience, a reminder of a war that had broken the world and left humans like me crawling for scraps of survival. And now the Alpha King himself wanted to see me. I clutched the pendant around my neck, a simple silver crescent moon with a star nestled in its curve, my mother's last gift before she died. The metal pressed cold into my palm, anchoring me as her voice echoed in memory. Always be brave, even when you're terrified. Bravery felt like a distant dream in that moment. My hands trembled as I set down the basket. Did I do something wrong? My voice cracked, thin as parchment. Nathaniel's eyes softened for the briefest second, then hardened again. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. He jerked his chin toward the door. Move. The kitchen erupted in whispers as I stepped away from the table. No one reached out. No one offered comfort or protest. They simply watched me go, grateful that it wasn't them being pulled into the storm. I forced my legs to move, though they felt like they had turned to stone. The corridor stretched ahead, long and narrow, the torches casting jagged shadows that seemed to close in with every step. The walls themselves felt alive with judgment. 2 guards fell into step beside me, towering wolves in gleaming armor. Their faces were blank, unreadable, but I felt their presence like an iron cage. Overkill, I thought bitterly. What threat was one human girl in a plain gray dress? Please, I whispered, my voice barely carrying in the cavernous hall. Tell me why he wants me. I've done nothing. Nathaniel's stride never faltered. "Perhaps that's the problem," he said, his tone enigmatic. His words coiled through my mind like smoke. What did that even mean? We passed staircases and archways I had never been allowed to climb. Each floor was more opulent than the last stone, giving way to polished marble, iron sconces replaced by chandeliers that glittered like captured stars. Tapestries depicting wolf victories hung heavy on the walls, silent reminders of their power. The scent of polished wood, burning torches, and dominance filled my nose, smothering the faint trace of rosemary still clinging to my fingertips. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might betray me, echoing in the silence. "Don't notice me, don't see me. Let me return to my safe insignificance." But it was too late. With 7 words, the Alpha King had already stripped me of the shield I had built from silence and shadows. We stopped at an ornate set of double doors. Guards stood watch, their very stillness radiating lethal threat. They assessed me with cool detachment, one of them smirking as he inhaled deeply. "Human," he murmured to his companion. "This should be interesting." The doors swung open, and the corridor's torchlight spilled into the vast chamber beyond. My body went rigid, every instinct screaming to turn back, to run, to disappear. But there was no escape. The Alpha King demanded my presence. And now, whether I wanted it or not, I would stand before his throne. The throne room swallowed me whole the moment I crossed its threshold. Light streamed in through high windows, slanting across the polished marble floor in long, accusing rectangles. Torches flickered along the walls, their flames bending and hissing in the draught. Shadows stretched upward to the vaulted ceiling, alive and shifting, as if the very stone bore witness to my intrusion. My footsteps echoed too loudly, betraying the tremor in my body. The vastness of the room made me feel small, even more so than usual. A kitchen girl among wolves, a human among predators, a speck of dust dragged before a storm. And at the end of the endless walkway, seated upon a throne hewn from a single block of ancient oak, was the Alpha King. Roman. I had heard stories whispered in the servants' quarters, tales of his conquests, his ruthlessness, his rise to power through blood. They said he had executed his own uncle without hesitation, claimed the crown by force, and held it with an iron grip. Some swore his rage could level armies. Others claimed he had no heart at all. Now, seeing him with my own eyes, I realized none of the stories had captured the truth. He didn't need rage to command the room. He didn't need noise or violence. He sat in perfect stillness, his posture flawless, his broad shoulders square, his hands resting lightly on the carved arms of the throne. His dark beard was trimmed close, his amber eyes fixed on me with an intensity that pierced straight through the flimsy armor of my invisibility. He wore no crown. Alpha Kings never did. They didn't need trinkets to prove their authority. Their power was something deeper, something primal, as undeniable as the pull of the moon. "Stop!" a voice barked when I was still several paces from the throne. My body froze before the command could fully register. Then, the king's voice. Smooth, controlled, frightening in its restraint. "Look at me, human." Every instinct screamed to keep my eyes down, to remain small, silent, unseen. But defiance now would be worse than cowardice. I lifted my gaze slowly, afraid of what I would find, and found amber fire staring back at me. His eyes were the eyes of a wolf. Keen, watchful, unblinking. They seemed to strip me bare in an instant, peeling away the meek facade I had so carefully constructed. "Your name," he said, not as a question, but as a demand. My throat closed, my voice cracking. "Ara, your Majesty." louder. Ara, your majesty. His head tilted slightly, like a predator regarding curious prey. And how long have you lived among my wolves? 3 years, your majesty. His gaze sharpened. 3 years. In the kitchens, in the servants' quarters, always present, yet never seen, making yourself invisible. The way he said it made the truth sound like an accusation. Yes, your majesty, I whispered. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Wolves lined the walls, council members, and high-ranking warriors in silks and leather, their gazes heavy with contempt. Before that, the king pressed, I swallowed hard. I traveled. After the Great War, there was nowhere, for someone like me to belong. The words felt like splinters, half-truths carved to protect what little I still kept hidden. He leaned forward, resting his weight on one arm of the throne. Someone like you, he repeated, his voice deceptively thoughtful, pro-praise. And what exactly are you, Ara? Percented. The question hit like a blow. My heartbeat stuttered, my mother's warning echoing in my ears. Don't ever tell them what you are. I'm human, I whispered. Just human, Prices. Are you? The deceptively casual words seemed to carry all the weight in the world. A low growl rumbled from one of the wolves gathered near the dais. Another spoke, his tone laced with scorn. She reeks of fear. Perhaps she reeks of blood as well. 3 of our kin dead, and this human always nearby. The chamber stirred. Accusations, whispers, hungry for a scapegoat. I didn't. The protest tore from me, too loud, too desperate. I didn't kill anyone. The wolves growled in response, their voices blending into something feral. Roman raised one hand. Instantly, silence fell. Absolute, unquestioning. His eyes never left mine. 3 wolves murdered, throats torn. No scent trail, no witnesses. And each death near the places you haunt the kitchens, the servant's wing, the herb garden. Ice flooded my veins. Coincidence, I said, though the word sounded hollow even to me. Coincidence? His voice was soft, but it carried through the hall with lethal clarity. Or concealment? I shook my head, too frantic now to mask the fear twisting in my chest. Your Majesty, I swear I saw nothing. I know nothing. Enough. The single word cut sharper than a blade. He rose to his feet, and the entire chamber seemed to bend around his movement, as though the very air shifted with him. For 3 years we have fed you, sheltered you, allowed you to live among us. And what have you given in return? His eyes burned into mine. Silence, invisibility, and now suspicion. My knees buckled, and I almost sank to the floor, but pride or sheer terror kept me standing. He regarded me for another long moment, then turned slightly to his right. Take her to the holding cells. My stomach dropped. No, I gasped, reaching out as though I could physically hold back his decision. Please, Your Majesty, I've done nothing wrong. But he had already resumed his seat on the throne, his face a wall of unreadable authority. 2 guards closed in, their grips firm but not cruel. As they pulled me back, the king's final words followed me like a curse. Let her reflect on her loyalties. We will speak again when the time is right. The throne room doors slammed shut behind me, cutting off torchlight and whispers, leaving me with nothing but the sound of my own ragged breathing process. And the echo of his question, still burning in my mind. What exactly are you? I had expected iron bars, chains, damp stone walls that reeked of mold. Perhaps straw on the floor, the kind of cage reserved for criminals or traitors. But when the guards shut me inside, I found none of that. The chamber was spare, yes, but unsettlingly comfortable. Stone walls, smooth and clean. A narrow bed with a thin mattress and folded blanket. A small table holding a pitcher of water and a single cup. High above, a window too narrow to crawl through spilled a slice of moonlight across the floor. It wasn't a dungeon. It was a room. A prison disguised as hospitality. The door shut with a soft thud, followed by the metallic scrape of a key turning in the lock. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my body rigid, my mind reeling. My mother's pendant was warm against my skin, where my hand had clutched it through the entire walk here. Always be brave, even when you're terrified. I repeated the words silently, like a prayer. Brave, brave, brave. But courage felt like a thread pulled too thin, ready to snap at the first tug. The silence pressed on me. 3 years of keeping to myself, of blending into shadows, had never felt so heavy. Invisibility had been my armor. Now, it had been stripped away in a single day. I didn't know how long I sat like that, staring at the moonlit rectangle on the floor, when a soft knock broke through my thoughts. The door opened, and to my surprise, it wasn't another guard. Lydia stepped inside. I had seen her only at a distance before King Roman's advisor, a woman whose voice carried in council chambers, and whose presence silenced squabbles among the wolves. She was older than most, silver streaking her auburn hair, her bearing calm, deliberate, not cruel, not kind. Simply unshakable, like stone that had weathered storms others could not survive. In her hands she carried a tray, bread, cheese, and a steaming mug that filled the room with the soft scent of chamomile. "You should eat," she said, her tone neither warm nor cold, setting the tray on the table. My stomach twisted with hunger, but suspicion held me still. Am I to be well fed before my execution? Her brow arched slightly, but she didn't flinch. Is that what you think this is? 3 wolves are dead, I said quietly, my voice tighter than I intended. And I'm human. Convenient scapegoat, isn't it? Lydia studied me for a long moment, her gaze sharp but not unkind. Then she spoke, each word deliberate. If King Roman wanted you dead, Ara, you would already be dead. The truth of it sent a shiver through me. Wolves did not hesitate when it came to execution. They didn't waste food and comfort on someone marked for death. Still, I couldn't bring myself to reach for the bread. I curled my fingers tighter around the pendant at my throat instead. Her eyes flicked to the silver crescent, the small star nestled within. That means something to you. Oh, it was my mother's, I said, the words emerging before I could stop them. Her last gift. Lydia nodded as if she had expected the answer. She turned her gaze to the narrow window, the moonlight cutting pale across her face. You've lived among wolves for 3 years, she said softly. And yet, you've managed what no other human has. I frowned. What do you mean? Her eyes returned to mine, sharp, assessing. You've survived. Without challenge, without claim, without being broken. She tilted her head slightly. That is unusual. I forced a laugh, brittle and hollow. I've been lucky. Her smile held no warmth. There is no such thing as luck in a wolf pack, child, only strength and strategy. My throat tightened. I'm just human. Are you? Her gaze didn't waver. Your scent? It's muted, controlled. Humans have a distinct aroma, warmth, fragility, salt, fear. Yours has always been different, as though something is masking what you truly are. My chest went cold. I'm just a girl trying to survive, I whispered. Perhaps, she said, that single word carrying volumes of doubt. But survival leaves its own marks, and you wear too few. I dropped my eyes to the floor, pulse hammering in my ears. My mother's face flickered in my memory, pale and fierce in the firelight. Run. Don't look back. Don't ever tell them what you are. The words wrapped around me like chains. What do you think I am? I asked before I could stop myself. Lydia's expression softened, though her voice remained steady. That, Ara, is not for me to answer. But know this, wolves can hear a heartbeat, quicken with a lie. They can smell secrets buried in skin. Pedia. You may think you've hidden well, but nothing remains invisible forever. Her words hollowed me out, leaving me raw. She moved toward the door, pausing only once. Rest, she said. Tomorrow will test you more than today. The door shut behind her, the lock turning again. I stared at the untouched bread, the steam rising from the mug, and finally reached for the cup. The chamomile smelled of peace, of safety. I drank anyway, even though suspicion lingered with every swallow. Then I lay back on the narrow bed, fingers curled around my mother's pendant until the edges dug into my palm. Never tell them what you are, her voice echoed. But the king's voice lingered louder still, burning in my ears. What exactly are you? The scrape of a key turning in the lock woke me from a shallow, uneasy sleep. My body jolted upright, heart racing, eyes darting to the silver rectangle of moonlight on the floor. 2 female guards entered, their faces unreadable. One carried folded linens, the other a bundle of cloth I didn't recognize. You're to bathe and change, the taller one said, her voice clipped but not unkind. She gestured to a narrow door I hadn't noticed the night before. Everything you need is inside. I hesitated, suspicion gnawing at me. Why? The Alpha King's orders. The guard's tone made it clear there would be no further explanation. I swallowed my questions and obeyed. Inside the chamber, I found a copper tub filled with steaming water, scented oils floating on its surface, towels stacked neatly to the side. Luxury. Far beyond anything I'd known in the servants' quarters. I undressed slowly, my hands clumsy. The thought of bathing here, of washing in comfort I hadn't earned, made me feel exposed in ways far more dangerous than nudity. Still, I stepped into the water, shivering as the heat embraced me. The warmth loosened muscles tight from fear and sleeplessness, but it unsettled me too. Why prepare me this way? Why offer me comfort now, when I was meant to be judged? I scrubbed quickly, as if speed might shield me. The herbs clinging to my skin washed away, replaced by something floral, faintly sweet. When I emerged, toweling off, my reflection in the small bronze mirror startled me. Pale hair damp and loose, skin scrubbed clean, eyes wide with questions I couldn't answer. I looked less like the kitchen maid I had worked so hard to become, and more like someone I didn't recognize. When I returned to the main chamber wrapped in the towel, the guards were waiting. Laid out across the bed was a dress. Not the rough gray wool I usually wore, but something softer, finer. Blue fabric, with subtle embroidery at the cuffs and neckline. Simple yet undeniably elegant. Put it on, the shorter guard instructed. My fingers trembled as I obeyed, fumbling with unfamiliar fastenings. The dress fit as though it had been made for me. That, more than anything, made my stomach knot. Someone had measured me. Someone had chosen this color, this cut. Someone had noticed me in ways I had spent years ensuring no one did. One guard approached with a brush. Your hair. I sat stiffly as she undid my practical braid and brushed out the strands until they fell in soft waves around my shoulders. The gentle treatment felt alien. For 3 years I had hidden behind plainness, dullness, deliberate invisibility. Now the wolves stripped it away with every stroke of the brush. My voice cracked as I asked, Why are you doing this? The guard paused mid-stroke, meeting my eyes in the mirror. The Alpha King's orders. The echo of Nathaniel's words from yesterday sent a chill through me. No one questioned the Alpha King, not his warriors, not his advisors, and certainly not a human girl accused of murder. When they were finished, one of them tilted her head, studying me with something like curiosity. "Strange," she murmured. "You clean up more like nobility than a scullery maid." The other guard hushed her, but the words lingered. Moments later, they led me from the chamber. Whispers rippled through the corridors as we passed servants, pausing mid-step, soldiers turning to watch, voices low but not low enough. Why would the king care how she looks? She's only human. Perhaps not only. The words crawled over my skin, as heavy as the dress itself. Each step felt more foreign, as though I were walking in another woman's body. At last we reached a set of doors carved with the pack's emblem, a wolf howling beneath a crescent moon. Beyond lay the council chamber, the heart of power. The guards pushed the doors open, and the sight made my breath catch. The room was circular, the ceiling high, the walls lined with banners and ancient tapestries depicting the pack's victories. At the center stood a massive round table of dark wood polished to a mirror's sheen. Around it sat 12 wolves, 6 men and 6 women, their presence radiating power. These were no ordinary wolves. They were the highest-ranking members of the Alpha King's court. Every head turned when I entered, some gazes curious, some hostile, others unreadable, but all of them weighed me, judged me, and at the head of the table sat King Roman. He did not wear finery, only a simple black tunic. Yet his presence outshone the wealth and power of everyone else in the room. His amber eyes locked onto me, burning with the same unrelenting focus as yesterday. For a heartbeat, silence held. Then his voice filled the chamber, steady and commanding. "Ara," he said, "join us." The guards guided me to an empty chair at his right hand. The position itself sent a ripple of murmurs around the table. A kitchen maid seated beside the Alpha King. A human girl, in silk, among wolves of rank. I sat stiffly, my hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. My pendant lay cold against my skin, its familiar weight the only tether in this storm of scrutiny. The Alpha King's gaze lingered on me for a moment longer, then shifted to the council. "You all know why we are gathered." I felt every eye swing back to me, hot and heavy, as though I had been placed on trial before a dozen predators. And I realized, with a sick twist in my stomach, that I had been. The chamber felt colder once I sat, though the fire blazing in the hearth should have warmed it. Wolves lined the table, their gazes heavy with suspicion and disdain. 12 of them counselors, generals, advisors, wolves who had fought and clawed for their positions. And me, a human girl dressed in borrowed silk, seated at the Alpha King's right hand. It felt like mockery. The air thrummed with restrained hostility, like the moment before lightning strikes. Even the scrape of my chair against the polished floor had sounded too loud, too human. King Roman leaned back in his seat, perfectly composed. His eyes swept the circle, amber light catching like embers in the torch glow. When he spoke, the room silenced. "You all know why we are gathered. 3 wolves are dead, each of them high-ranking, each of them found in locations close to this girl." A ripple of growls traveled around the table. My body stiffened, my fingers digging into the fabric of my dress. The scarred wolf to my left slammed his fist onto the table. "Then why are we wasting time? Put her through the blood trial. Let the truth be laid bare before the moon." A murmur of agreement followed. My breath caught. The blood trial. I had heard whispers of it, an ancient ritual binding wolf and accused, a mixing of blood that revealed truth. But not only truth, it revealed everything: secrets, lies, the very marrow of who you were. My mother's voice echoed, fierce and urgent, "Never tell them what you are." No, Roman's voice cut through the noise like steel, calm but absolute. "The blood trial is sacred. It will not be used lightly." Another wolf, female, her hair streaked silver, leaned forward. "With respect, my king. 3 of our kin lie cold. If not now, then when?" Roman's gaze never wavered. "When I decide it is necessary, not before." The table shifted uneasily. Loyalty to their king clashed with suspicion of me. I felt it in their eyes, the way they searched me for cracks, for guilt. I forced myself to breathe, to steady my voice enough to say, "I didn't kill them." My words sounded pitiful against the chorus of wolves, but I couldn't stay silent. The scarred wolf sneered. "Coincidence, then? That she is always nearby? A human skulking in our halls, hiding behind silence?" Heat burned my cheeks. I wanted to shrink into nothing, but something inside me stirred something sharper than fear. "Coincidence," I said slowly, "that all 3 murders happened near Silver." The words dropped into the chamber like stones into still water. Ripples spread instantly. Eyes turned to me, some sharp, some surprised. Roman tilted his head, interest flickering in his gaze. "Explain." I swallowed hard, my palms damp. But once I started speaking, the words rushed out. The first was in the kitchen storage. That day, a shipment of silverthorn wine arrived. The second, near the servants' wing where the ceremonial silver was being polished for the alliance gathering. And the third, in the herb garden. I was preparing silver sage that morning. Silence followed, thick, unyielding. The scarred wolf's lip curled. "You expect us to believe a kitchen maid noticed what none of us did?" "She's lying," another muttered, "or distracting." But Roman leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. "Silver," he murmured, almost to himself. "Always silver, always tied to the royal house." His voice rose, carrying to every corner of the chamber. "This is no mere crime. This is a challenge to my reign." A heavy tension settled over the table. Wolves shifted in their seats, the implications sinking deep. This wasn't about random killings. This was targeted, political. The steel-haired woman's eyes narrowed at me, calculating. Or perhaps the human noticed because she had a hand in it, a convenient pattern for her to point out. My chest tightened. "No, I only—" Roman raised a hand, silencing me as easily as he silenced the others. His gaze lingered on me for a moment longer, unreadable, before he turned back to the council. "You will not lay hand or fang on her without my command," he said, his tone sharp enough to cut. "She will remain under my supervision until this matter is resolved." Murmurs erupted again, some angry, some uneasy. My heart pounded as I sat frozen, acutely aware of every pair of eyes on me. I had spoken out, broken my invisibility, and in doing so painted an even larger target on my back. The council wasn't convinced of my innocence. If anything, my insight only deepened their suspicion. But Roman had listened, and that was more dangerous than all the wolves' hatred combined. When the council adjourned, I thought they would send me back to the holding cell, to the narrow bed, and the echo of my mother's warning. But instead, Nathaniel gripped my arm and steered me not toward the lower halls, but upward through polished corridors, past doors, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. "Clias," my pulse stuttered. "Where are you taking me?" Nathaniel's jaw tightened, but his eyes didn't meet mine. The king wishes to speak with you. Alone. The words twisted my stomach into knots. Alone with the Alpha King. I wanted to resist, but my legs moved of their own accord, driven by fear stronger than any command. We stopped at a set of dark wooden doors. Nathaniel knocked once, then opened them without waiting for a reply. He nudged me inside and shut the door firmly behind me. The room was dim, lit by firelight and the golden glow of a lantern on a broad desk. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books, scrolls, and maps. The air smelled of ink and leather, of pine smoke and wolf. And there he was. Roman stood near the hearth, one hand resting on the mantel, his back straight, his presence filling the space even in silence. He turned as I entered, his eyes catching the light, amber burning into me with the same unrelenting intensity as before. Sit. The command was calm, but my knees nearly buckled, obeying it. I lowered myself into the chair opposite his desk, my fingers clutching the edge of my dress to hide their trembling, profane. He studied me for a long moment before he spoke. You've lived here for 3 years. I nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. In silence. In shadows. Always at the edges. He stepped closer, his gaze sharp. You don't laugh. You don't quarrel. You don't even age. My heart skipped. I what? He leaned against the desk, arms folded, looming above me. You look exactly as you did the day you entered my pack. Humans wear their years quickly. Yet you, your skin, your hair, your bones remain untouched. Panic surged hot and cold through me. I forced a laugh, brittle. Perhaps hard work has preserved me. His brow arched. Do you truly think me a fool? My mouth went dry. The pendant at my throat felt heavy, a noose instead of comfort. He straightened, pacing slowly around me, a wolf circling prey. You hide in plain sight. You survive among wolves without claim, without protection, without being torn apart. You speak little, reveal less, and yet, when pressed, you notice what my own counsel overlooked. He stopped behind me, his voice low. That is not luck, Ara. That is something else. I couldn't breathe. His words clawed at the edges of my carefully built mask. Then he said it. The thing I had dreaded since the moment my name left his lips in the throne room. The blood trial. The words seemed to echo, the firelight flickering as though stirred by them. No, I gasped, twisting in my seat to face him. No, Your Majesty, please, you can't. His eyes narrowed. Why not, if you're only human? Because it will expose me. Because it will strip me bare before every wolf in this castle. Because my mother's last words will turn to dust on my tongue. But I couldn't say any of that. Instead, desperation cracked through me. It's dangerous. Ancient. I've heard the stories humans don't survive it. Is that what you want? My blood spilled on your sacred stones? His gaze burned into me, searching, testing. Silence stretched until I thought I might choke on it. Finally, he spoke. No, not yet. Relief surged, only to falter, as his next words fell like chains. You will not return to the kitchens. You will not return to the cells. From this moment, you will remain at my side until the killer is found. My head jerked up. At your side? His expression didn't shift. Where I can see you, where no one else can lay claim to you, where every move you make will be under my watch. It should have felt like protection, but the words landed like a sentence. A cage dressed in velvet, locked with his authority. I shook my head, panic flooding me. Your Majesty, I'm no one. You are not no one. His voice sharpened, cutting through my protest. That is your first lie. Do not insult me with it again. power and my chest heaved, every part of me trembling with the effort of holding my secrets in place. He stepped closer, close enough that the firelight painted gold across the hard lines of his face. "You'll stay where I put you, Ara. Not as a prisoner. Not yet. But not free either. Until the truth is uncovered, you belong to me, belong." The words struck harder than any accusation. I dropped my eyes, clutching the pendant until the edges bit into my palm. My mother's voice whispered through memory, fierce and terrified, "Never tell them what you are." But now the king himself had bound me to his side. A gilded cage, and every lock clicked shut with his final decree. The throne room smelled different that morning, charged, sharp, like the air before a storm. Word had already spread through the pack. The Southern Alpha had arrived early with his delegation. Wolves hurried in hushed tones, shoulders stiff with unease. I stood at Roman's side as the heavy doors swung open, my palms damp against the blue fabric of the dress they had given me. Every stitch still felt like a costume, something borrowed, not mine. Yet the moment the Southern wolves entered, I understood why I had been dressed this way. Roman had wanted me visible. 6 wolves filed in behind their leader, menacing in their precision, their confidence. They moved like soldiers who had tasted blood and victory, and at their head, Alpha Dominic. He was older than Roman, his dark hair streaked with gray, his frame solid with the weight of years and wars. His eyes swept the throne room like a predator scanning for weakness before settling on Roman. Their gazes clashed in silence first, an unspoken contest of dominance that even I could feel in my bones. Then Dominic's gaze shifted and landed on me. Surprise flickered across his face, gone as quickly as it came, replaced by a thin, knowing smile. "Roman," he said, his voice carrying the faintest accent of the Southern Territories, warm and venomous all at once. "I see you've made interesting changes to your court." Roman's shoulders remained perfectly straight, his presence still as carved stone. "The North adapts, as all strong packs must." Dominic's smile sharpened as his eyes returned to me. "And who is this? A human consort?" The word dripped with insult. Consort. Not mate, not partner, something lesser, something disposable. Heat rushed to my cheeks. Around us, northern wolves bristled, but none spoke. All eyes shifted to Roman, waiting for him to claim or deny. And then I heard my own voice. Clear, steady, surprising even to myself. "I am not his consort," I said. "I am his advisor on human affairs." The silence that followed was suffocating. Whispers rippled at the edges of the room. Advisors were wolves, always wolves. To hear the title spoken by a human was nearly sacrilege. Roman's hand came to rest lightly at the small of my back, a touch subtle but unmistakable. His approval, Dominic's brows lifted. "A human advisor?" he repeated, as though tasting the words. "How very progressive of you, Roman." Roman's lips curved in something that might have been a smile, though his eyes remained cold. "The world has changed since the Great War. Only fools cling to old ways." Dominic's expression flickered, but I caught the faint twitch of unease, quickly masked. He studied me again, more intently this time, as if I were a puzzle he almost recognized. His nostrils flared slightly, and my stomach clenched. Wolves could scent lies, secrets, truths. What had he smelled in me? I fought the urge to clutch my pendant, knowing it would reveal too much. Instead, I lifted my chin and met his gaze directly. If he wanted to see weakness, I would not give it to him. For a moment, it was just the two of us, locked in silent confrontation. Then he looked away, back to Roman. "Tell me, Alpha King, do your wolves accept this? human as part of your council? Or is it your will alone? The tension in the room thickened. Northern wolves shifted restlessly. Some growled low in their throats. Roman's voice cut through the air, deep and unyielding. My wolves follow me, and I do not ask for their acceptance, I command it. A murmur swept the chamber, half awe, half fear. Dominic inclined his head slowly, though his smile was all teeth. Then perhaps you should command them harder, Roman. Word travels fast. 3 of your council dead, a 4th attacked. Silver missing. Rumors of rebellion. Some might question whether the northern territories are stable under your reign. The insult was deliberate, the provocation sharp as a blade. My heart pounded. Rebellion. He'd said it aloud, and though he dressed it as concern, the glint in his eyes told the truth. This wasn't sympathy. It was opportunity. Roman rose from the throne, every line of his body radiating authority. The situation is well in hand. His voice was calm, but beneath it, power coiled, dangerous and waiting. Dominic studied him for a long moment, then shifted his attention back to me. And what does the human advisor say? Are the North's troubles under control? All eyes swung to me again, the weight of their scrutiny like chains. My pulse thundered. To remain silent would be weakness. To speak would be peril. And yet, I found myself saying, the murders are not mere crimes. They are a challenge. Someone wants to shake the throne, but the throne still stands. The words left me trembling inside, but I kept my gaze steady. Roman's fingers pressed lightly against my back, almost imperceptible. But I felt it a silent acknowledgement, a warning, perhaps even approval. Dominic tilted his head, a look I couldn't decipher passing over his face. Recognition, unease, suspicion. Then, just as quickly, his smile returned. Well spoken, for a human. The delegation withdrew, with a bow that was precise, nothing more, nothing less. When the doors closed behind them, the throne room erupted in whispers. Wolves eyed me with new calculation, suspicion mingling with something else I couldn't name. Roman remained standing beside me, his face unreadable. You see it now, he said quietly, only for me. I swallowed hard. This isn't just about murder. His amber gaze burned with grim certainty. No, this is rebellion. And in that moment, with his hand still anchoring me in place, I realized I had crossed a line I could never step back from. The summons came before dawn, sharp knocks at the door to Roman's private quarters. I had barely slept, my thoughts tangled in Dominic's thinly veiled sneers, and the way Roman's hand had anchored me in place, as if I were already claimed. Nathaniel entered without waiting for permission. His expression was tight, controlled, but his eyes betrayed urgency. Another attack. The words hit like a blow to the chest. I sat up straight, clutching the pendant at my throat. Roman was already on his feet, his calm like a blade drawn. Who? Powers. Helena, Nathaniel said. She lives, but the silver crown is gone. The crown. My blood chilled. Penmurray-teen. The queen's ceremonial crown, passed down through generations of alpha consorts, its silver woven into delicate filigree that symbolized continuity and legitimacy. To steal, it was not just theft, it was a declaration. Roman's jaw hardened. Take me to her. I was already standing when his gaze flicked to me. You're coming. The walk through the corridors was a blur, though I felt every stare, every whispered suspicion that followed us. Wolves bowed as Roman passed, but their eyes slid toward me, sharp and questioning. Human, outsider, scapegoat. The infirmary smelled of herbs and blood. Helena lay pale against white linens, her head wrapped in bandages. Despite her wounds, her silver-gray eyes were clear as she focused on Roman. "You should have doubled the guard on the ceremonial chamber," she said, her voice strained. "I did," Roman replied evenly. "And yet the crown is gone. Tell me what you remember." Helena's hand trembled as she touched the bandage at her temple. I felt a presence behind me, too quiet to be Wolf. I turned, but too late. A blow steel, perhaps, but not enough to kill. Her eyes darkened. I caught a fragment of scent before I lost consciousness. Not wolf, not human. She hesitated, then looked directly at me. Something between. The words pressed the air from my lungs. A dozen gazes snapped toward me, suspicion sharpening like knives. "Convenient," growled Victor, the scarred wolf, who had never hidden his contempt. "The human girl is present at every turn, and now the attacker smells not human? End this charade. Put her to the blood trial." A rumble of agreement stirred among the council members gathered in the room. The words "blood trial" rolled through the chamber like thunder, gathering force. My heart pounded. I wanted to shout my innocence, to plead for them to believe me. But what good would it do? The more I protested, the more they saw guilt. And if they forced the trial... My mother's voice rang in my head, fierce and desperate. "Never tell them what you are." "I am not the killer," I said, forcing my voice steady though my knees shook. "But you're all blind if you think these murders are random. Look closer." Declan, the thin scholar wolf, adjusted his spectacles. "Speak then. What pattern do you see?" I gripped the pendant hard enough to cut my palm. "All the attacks have revolved around silver, tied to the royal house." Counselor Damon, in the storage room the day the Silverthorn wine arrived. Counselor Reed, near the servants' wing as silver ceremonial items were being prepared for the alliance. Counselor Livia, in the herb garden where silver sage grows. And now Helena, struck down in the ceremonial chamber while guarding the crown. Silence followed, heavy and unyielding. Their expressions shifted, calculating, unsettled. Even Victor's growl faltered into uncertainty. Roman's eyes, however, locked on mine with something fiercer. Understanding. "This is no ordinary crime," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber like iron. "This is not hunger, nor madness, nor chance. It is a challenge. To me, to the throne itself." The words struck sparks across the gathered wolves. A challenge to the throne was more than rebellion, it was sacrilege. Victor snarled. "All the more reason to test the human. If she bleeds wolf, then we'll know what manner of enemy lurks in our midst." A chorus of agreement rose again. The blood trial. Test her. End this. My throat closed, panic pressing hot against my ribs. If they forced me, there would be no hiding. My blood would betray me. Roman raised his hand, and the room stilled instantly. His gaze swept the council, cold fire in amber eyes. "Enough. Enough." "But your majesty," Victor began. Roman's voice cracked like a whip. I said enough. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the torches seemed to flicker in obedience. He turned back to me, his expression unreadable, though I felt the weight of his judgment like a physical thing. "Ara has revealed what none of you saw. A pattern woven in silver, a truth hidden in plain sight." He straightened, his presence filling the chamber. "And now, we set a trap." Whispers erupted, startled, uneasy. Roman's gaze swept them all, silencing dissent before it formed. The alliance gathering draws near. Silver will be on full display. Our enemy will not resist, and when they strike, they will find not prey, but death waiting. His words ignited something in the wolves. Anger, hunger for justice, loyalty rekindled. They nodded, growled their agreement. some pounding fists to chests in promise, Pipia. But even as the council rallied around him, I felt every eye still heavy on me. Their suspicion hadn't vanished. If anything, it had deepened. I forced myself to lift my chin, though my insides quaked. I had survived this far by being invisible. Now Roman had set me in the firelight for all to see. And I feared the trap we were setting might catch me as surely as it did the killer. Chapter 9. The Bait. The next 2 days blurred into a strange performance, one I never agreed to but could not escape. Everywhere Roman went, I was at his side. At meals in the great hall, he placed me beside him, his hand occasionally resting at the small of my back, guiding me like I belonged. In the training yards, he walked with me along the edge, his voice low in my ear as though sharing confidences. Even in council meetings, he seated me at his right hand again, forcing every pair of eyes in the room to acknowledge my presence. The effect was immediate. Whispers spread like wildfire. Why her? Why a human? Why now, when blood stains our halls? I could feel the wolves' stares burning into me at every turn, equal parts curiosity, suspicion, and resentment. They had tolerated me when I was invisible, a shadow in the kitchens, but now paraded in silks, seated by their king, I was an offense, a threat. I wanted to disappear again, to fold myself into small corners where no one noticed. But Roman's hand on my back, on my arm, at my elbow, kept me tethered to the spotlight. I was his bait, and every wolf in the pack knew it. When the public theater ended, he drew me back to his private study, closing the heavy doors behind us. The silence there was heavier than the whispers outside. He stood at the window for a long time, arms folded, the fire painting shadows across the planes of his face. Finally, without turning, he said, "They wonder why I keep you so close." I pressed my fingers into the silver pendant at my throat, its edges sharp against my palm. "Because you want them to notice me, to notice and react." His gaze shifted toward me then, sharp amber pinning me in place, "because I want our enemy to notice." The word enemy lingered between us. Wolves suspected me, accused me. Roman had not declared me innocent. Instead, he made me visible, a lure to draw the killer out. "You've made me bait," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. His mouth curved, not in amusement but in grim acknowledgement. "You're clever enough to see that. And strong enough, I think, to endure it." He moved closer, circling slowly, always with that controlled predator's grace. "But there is still the question I cannot put aside, Ara." My heart thudded painfully. "What question?" He stopped directly before me, close enough that the air seemed to grow thin. His eyes searched mine, unblinking, relentless. "What are you hiding?" Pendant felt heavy as stone in my fist. I wanted to lie, to give him something simple, harmless. But his eyes stripped me bare. I remembered Lydia's words, "Wolves can hear the heartbeat quicken with a lie." So I gave him fragments, just enough truth to taste real. "My village was destroyed," I whispered, forcing the words past the tightness in my throat. "Not by wolves, by vampires. They came at night, set fire to everything. My mother shoved me into a cellar. She gave me this pendant, told me to run, to never look back." My voice shook. "I ran for days. I saw things no one should see. When I reached your borders, I begged for sanctuary. I told you I'd do anything to stay. That's the truth." It was the truth, but not all of it. Never all. Roman studied me in silence, his expression unreadable. At last, he said softly, "Fragments." I blinked. "What?" He leaned closer, his voice low and steady. You've given me fragments, Ara. Just enough to satisfy the wolves who demand a story. Just enough to make me hesitate. But I can hear it in your heart. His eyes narrowed slightly. You are still not telling me everything. Shame and fear twisted inside me. He was right. He was always right. My mouth opened, closed. Words tangled in my throat, caught between terror and defiance. His hand lifted, not roughly, not even firmly, just a touch beneath my chin, urging me to look at him. You don't have to trust them, he said. But you will have to trust me, because if you don't, Ara, the pack will tear you apart long before the killer makes a move. My breath shook as it left me. His proximity, his words, the intensity of his gaze, it all felt like another kind of cage. Not iron, not stone, but fire. I have trusted you, I whispered. His thumb brushed my jawline, so lightly it might have been imagined. Not yet, pow. The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs, the pendant biting into my palm like a warning. Never tell them what you are. Finally, Roman released me, stepping back, his expression sliding into the unreadable mask of command. Tomorrow night is the full moon. The alliance gathering follows. The enemy will strike soon. Until then, you remain at my side. No exceptions. I swallowed hard, nodding, though the truth still burned in my chest, unsaid. I was bait, yes, but the real trap was tightening around me. The night pressed close, heavy with the kind of silence that made every shadow feel alive. I sat in Roman's study, the fire low, its embers pulsing like a heartbeat. My pendant lay warm against my skin, though I'd clutched it so hard earlier that the edges had left marks in my palm. Roman paced before me, slow, deliberate, like a predator circling prey. His amber eyes burned in the dim light, unrelenting. I had grown used to his scrutiny, but this was different. This wasn't the Alpha King studying a subject. This was a man peeling back the last of my defenses. Finally, he stopped, bracing his hands on the desk as he leaned forward. You've given me fragments, Ara, he said, his voice low, measured. But fragments are not enough anymore. I've watched you too long, listened too carefully. His gaze locked onto mine, sharp as a blade. Your scent is wrong, too muted for human, too controlled for wolf, and you haven't aged in 3 years. Not a line, not a mark. Cryaches, do you think I don't notice? My breath caught. The fire crackled in the silence, mocking me. You should be thin with fear, he continued. But you adapt too well. You hide too perfectly. Survival like that isn't human. It's instinct. I am human, I whispered, though the words tasted bitter, fragile. His lips curved, not in amusement but in certainty. He crossed the room in 2 long strides until he stood so close I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. He bent slightly, his voice brushing my ear like smoke. You're not human, Ara. You're half-wolf, a hybrid. The word shivered through me, cutting deep, stirring memories I had buried under years of silence. No, I gasped, shaking my head. No, that's impossible. But the denial cracked as fast as it left my lips. I saw it, my mother's face in the firelight, pale and fierce as she pressed the pendant into my palm. Run, don't look back. Don't ever tell them what you are. The screams, the smoke, the pounding of my own blood in my ears. I had been only a child, but I remembered the way she had held me too tightly, as though her own body could shield the truth inside me. You know it, Roman said softly, watching me break. I can see it in your eyes. You've always known. Tears burned, but I refused to let them fall. She told me to survive, I whispered, to hide, to never let anyone see. Claudim, bye, bye, Claudim, bye, 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 bye. Your mother was right, he said, but hiding is over now. I turned away, clutching the pendant like it could keep me tethered to the lie. If any of them knew, wolves would call me an abomination. Humans would call me a monster. Vampires would hunt me for what I am. Do you understand what that means? His hand came down lightly on my shoulder, steady, grounding. I understand it better than you think, but I also know what it means to deny yourself. To live in chains of secrecy. You've done it for 3 years, longer, and it's killing you. I looked up at him then, and the intensity in his gaze nearly undid me. His voice dropped, gentler now, but still edged with steel. Stand with me as you are, or remain a shadow forever. The choice hung between us like a blade, impossible and inevitable. I can't, I whispered, though the words wavered. I don't know how. You can, he countered. I've seen the strength in you, the defiance. You think survival is weakness, but it's not. It's power, a wolf's power. His thumb brushed the line of my jaw, a touch so tender it contradicted the force of his words. My heart hammered, caught between fear and something far more dangerous, want. His closeness made every lie tremble, every wall thin. For a breath I thought he might kiss me. For a breath I thought I might let him. Then the door burst open. Nathaniel's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Your Majesty, another attack. Roman, straightened instantly, the Alpha King sliding back into place as though the moment had never existed. Who? Counselor Theron, struck down in the East Wing. Still alive, but barely. The attacker escaped. Roman's jaw clenched. And the scent of Crisena? Nathaniel hesitated, glancing at me before answering. The same as before. Not wolf, not human. Something in between. The words hit like ice water. Every head turned toward me. Suspicion renewed, sharpened. Roman's gaze lingered on me longer than the rest. Unreadable, his amber eyes burning with certainty, and something else I couldn't name. Stay here, he commanded, already moving toward the door. Do not leave this room. Roman, I began, but the door slammed shut behind him, leaving me alone with the firelight and my racing heart. I pressed the pendant to my lips, the metal cool, the memory of my mother's warning fierce in my ears. Never tell them what you are. But it was too late. He knew, and the truth I had buried so deep was clawing its way to the surface, threatening to consume everything. The day of the alliance dawned cold and bright, the kind of morning that carried sharp edges in the air. The entire pack house pulsed with energy, servants rushing through corridors with trays and linens, guards doubling their posts, wolves in finery filling the halls. It was the first time in years that every alpha across the territories had gathered under one roof. And Roman made certain I was never more than a step from his side. I wore another dress chosen for me, a deep gray, threaded with silver embroidery, subtle but unmistakable. My hair had been brushed until it gleamed like pale moonlight, and the pendant at my throat had not been removed. Each detail was deliberate. I was meant to be seen. When the doors to the throne room opened, the tide of alphas poured in, 12 leaders, each flanked by their delegations, each radiating their own kind of power. Their scents mingled in the air, earth and storm, river and smoke, layered with the tension of wolves who tolerated one another only for the sake of fragile alliance. Roman stood at the head of it all, commanding without a crown, without ornament. His presence alone was enough, and I stood to his right, his hand resting lightly at my back, the gesture subtle but impossible to miss. Whispers rippled like wind through grass. The Alpha King has taken a human. No. Look, she's seated at his side. Is she a consort? A spy? A distraction? I kept my head high, though my insides churned. Wolves stared openly, some with disdain, others with suspicion, a few with curiosity that felt sharper than either. It was the Southerners who unsettled me most. Dominic led them again, his expression as unreadable as ever, but I saw the flicker of unease in the wolves at his back. Their eyes lingered too long, their nostrils flared as though they scented something they half recognized. It made my skin prickle, my pulse quicken. Roman's voice cut through the whispers, deep and resonant. The alliance begins. We meet not in weakness, but in strength. Though wolves have died, though treachery stirs, this pack remains unbroken, and it will remain so. A rumble of assent moved through the chamber, though not all voices joined. Some alphas shifted restlessly, eyes darting between Roman and me. Then the servants carried in the ceremonial items, gleaming platters, silver goblets, and finally, the crown. The queen's crown, stolen only days ago, now returned by Roman's command to its place of honor. Its silver glinted under torchlight, delicate and deadly, a reminder of legacy and power. I felt the subtle shift in the room the moment it appeared. Wolves inhaled, ears pricked, eyes narrowed. The crown was not just a symbol, it was bait. And every predator present knew it. Roman didn't announce it as such. He didn't need to. His order had been clear. The crown would remain on display throughout the gathering, unguarded but watched, waiting to tempt the hand of whoever had orchestrated the murders. I glanced at him, at the calm lines of his face, the authority in his posture. He looked unshakable, but his fingers pressed lightly against my back in silent communication. Stay steady, don't falter. Because I wasn't just standing beside him as ornament. I was part of the trap. The realization settled like ice in my stomach. For weeks, I had tried to make myself invisible. Now I was paraded as though I belonged to him, a human girl among kings. Bait painted in silk and silver. But beneath the stares, beneath the whispers, I felt something sharper. I wasn't only bait, I was also the prize. If the killer sought to strike at Roman's reign, what better way than to strike at the woman the Alpha King kept so close? The one whose presence already scandalized the pack? To expose me, to destroy me, would wound him too. The thought sent a tremor through me, but I straightened my spine. I would not let them see fear. Roman addressed the Council of Alphas, his words steady, measured, but I only half heard them. My focus had narrowed to the currents in the room, the sidelong glances, the murmured exchanges, the southern wolves' two sharp gazes. One of them, a tall, scarred wolf at Dominic's side, let his eyes linger on me too long. His nostrils flared, and something in his expression shifted. Recognition, unease, hunger. I pressed my palm to my pendant, grounding myself in its weight. My mother's voice echoed, as it always did. Never tell them what you are. And yet, with every stare, every whisper, I felt that truth pressing closer to the surface. Roman's speech ended, and the alphas raised their goblets in toast, though not all with equal conviction. As the servants poured wine, I caught Roman's profile in the torchlight, hard and resolute. His jaw set, his eyes sharp as flame. He knew as well as I did. Tonight wasn't about ceremony. Tonight was about survival, per man. And when the trap was sprung, I would either stand revealed or fall. The night of the full moon had a weight to it, an ancient pull that thrummed through the stone halls of the pack house. I felt it in the restless energy of the wolves, in the charged air that made my skin prickle. Even I, human, or so I had always told myself, felt it in my bones. The moon climbed slow and silver into the sky, its light spilling across the ceremonial chamber, where Roman had ordered me to wait. The crown rested on its pedestal at the center of the room, gleaming like a shard of winter. Guards lined the halls outside, but within the chamber it was only me, the crown, and the silence. And Roman. He stood tall, his presence nearly overwhelming in the flicker of torchlight. His wolves shifted restlessly beyond the walls, preparing for their transformation. Soon they would join the hunt, running as one beneath the full moon's call. But for now, Roman's attention was fixed on me. He stepped closer, his amber eyes burning. "When the moon rises fully, I will change," he said. His voice was steady, controlled, but I caught the flicker of strain in his jaw. "You'll be alone in this chamber. Vulnerable." I clutched my pendant, my mother's gift, the edges biting into my skin. "I'll survive," I whispered. He tilted his head, studying me as though he could strip the truth from my very blood. "Will you? Ara, prey does not survive in a den of predators. Unless," his voice dropped lower, almost intimate, "unless you reveal what you are." My heart stuttered painfully. "I told you, I'm human." "No," he said, the word final, irrevocable. "I've watched you, your scent, your slowed aging. The way you move, too instinctive to be entirely human. I know the truth you've been running from. You're not just human, you're half wolf. A hybrid." The word struck me like lightning. Hybrid, forbidden, hunted, feared. My mother's voice thundered through my memory. "Never tell them what you are." I shook my head fiercely. "If I reveal myself, they'll kill me. Or worse." Roman's gaze softened, though his voice remained hard. "If you don't, you'll die anyway. When the killer comes, and they will, you will not survive as you are now." The sound of howling erupted in the distance, raw and primal. The pack was shifting, surrendering to the moon. Roman's body tensed, his breathing deepening, the change pulling at him. He gritted his teeth against it, fighting to linger in this form just a little longer. "Choose Era," he said, his voice roughened by the strain of holding back the wolf. "Reveal yourself or be prey." Then he turned, striding toward the doors, his control breaking, his body already trembling with the force of transformation. He looked back once, his eyes glowing gold in the half-light. "Whatever you do, survive." And then he was gone. The silence he left behind was deafening. My chest rose and fell in uneven bursts, every muscle taut. I was alone. Alone with the crown, the moonlight, and my secret. The door creaked. My breath caught. A shadow slipped through the chamber, moving with unnatural grace. Not wolf, not human, something between. The killer. They circled me in the half-light, eyes glinting with cruel purpose. I stumbled back, heart pounding. My hands curled around the pendant, as though the small piece of silver could protect me. "Stay back," I whispered, though my voice trembled. They laughed softly, a sound too inhuman to belong to any true wolf. "You don't belong here, but you bleed the same as they do." A blade caught the torchlight, sharp, silver. I darted toward the far side of the chamber, every instinct screaming at me to run. But the killer moved faster, blocking my path, driving me back toward the crown's pedestal. The cold metal gleamed between us like a cruel witness. My lungs burned, my pulse a drumbeat of panic. I could not fight them as I was, too human, too fragile. The word throbbed in my chest, unless I revealed myself, unless I stopped running from the truth buried in my blood. But my mother's voice echoed, fierce and desperate. Never tell them what you are. The killer lunged. I stumbled, the blade missing me by inches. My palm struck the pedestal, knocking the crown askew. It rang out as it toppled, silver against stone. The sound sharp as judgment. I clutched my pendant, my knuckles white. My heart screamed to survive. My mother's words roared to remain hidden. Between the two, something inside me broke loose. Heat surged through my veins, fire and lightning tangled together. My breath tore from my chest as though something vast had awakened beneath my skin. The killer froze, eyes widening, their blade lowering as though they suddenly understood. Not wolf, not human, something between me, clawed. The truth clawed its way free, burning, undeniable. And just as I gasped on the edge of revelation, the chamber door burst open. Howls thundered in the distance. Roman's voice roared somewhere in the night. And still, my mother's warning echoed in my ears. Never tell them what you are. But it was too late. The choice had been made.